Ellie said she thought sex was overrated, and we later found out that Dan taught her everything he knows. That explains a lot. Olivia Atwood's Bad Boyfriends episode 8, and Izzy was supposed to be grilling Max's best friend Shane. We didn't really see her grilling him, to be honest. She asked if Max had cheated on her in Thailand, and Shane said no, and she says, why does he have to go to Thailand? Why can't he go to Ibiza? Well, probably because Ibiza's going to be completely shut. Like, I love Vegas. If somebody says to me, why do you keep going to Vegas? Why don't you go to Washington? Because I don't want to. But as he says to Shane, I know what you're like. I've seen videos of you in the shower with girls. And then she says, do you think I'm a good girlfriend to Max? And he says, no, I think you're a psycho. I think you're controlling. Too far. Izzy seems to believe, Shane, that Max hasn't cheated in Thailand. But if that's the case, why was Max totally freaking out when Shane showed up? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying he has cheated, but I just didn't understand his reaction. I don't know if she didn't ask very good questions or if they just edited the good ones out. Fuckface and Ellie were having a chat, and he says, I'm easily influenced by the boys and I hurt the people that I love the most. Shite. He said, you're holding on to this little bit of cheating, and she says it's not little. And he's like, oh, just a little bit of cheating. A little bit of cheating. A little bit of cheating would have been kissing somebody at the start of the relationship. A little bit of cheating would have been texting somebody. But he has literally shagged her best friend, had sex with 2 other people that we know, goes out and kisses people and nights out. Like, that's not a little bit. Like, what is wrong with this fucking idiot? And I know he's only 22, but it causes me so much physical pain. Izzy absolutely hates Shane, and she's kind of saying, like, what's your priority here? And to be honest, Shane was a bit of a cunt. You know, one of the guys who's always trying to be one of the lads, always trying to impress the boys. It's like, see, if you want to impress the boys so much, go and fucking shag them. However, if Izzy seriously said to Max, like, who you got to choose, me or Shane, we know who's going to pick, and it's not her. The girls and Anthony wake up in Brozone, and Anthony's like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. I don't know why people say that, because I would wish way worse on somebody who's not even really an enemy. Dylan made Anthony breakfast, bless him. He came down and Anthony says, did you really make this? And he says, I helped. I put crisscrosses on the sausages to make them look better. That was nice. Do you know what? At least he's trying. Olivia gave them all a sex survey, and Dylan was like, I don't really like talking about my sex life. It makes me very uncomfortable. But do you know what? He done it. He's putting the effort in. Everybody else is perfectly happy to fill it in. So the girls were talking about their sex life, and they says, oh, do you not think that sex is, and Ellie said, overrated? I can see why she feels that way. She says, I always talk to my mum about sex. She told me where the man's G-spot is. Now, I personally don't have that kind of relationship with my mum, but I know a lot of people who do. It's not for me. But what I found interesting about that is she's obviously very close to her mum and she trusts her. So I don't understand how she's managed to get to this point with Dan, and her mum's not just fucking dissolved him in a vat of acid. When Dan was filling out the questionnaire, he says, I've been very honest. Well, there's a first for everything. They played a game called Dirty Secrets. Olivia asked the couples questions, and if their answers didn't match, they got an ice bucket over them. Olivia asked what was Max's favourite sex position, and I can't remember what she said, but he says, I like all of them, I'm just thankful for whatever I get. Well, okay, fair enough. And then she says to Izzy, how many sexual partners has Max had? And she says around 200, and I think he wrote 225 or something, I can't remember. But she ice bucketed them, even though I felt like her answer was right. But then Olivia revealed that he has got a tattoo that was something to do with how many sexual partners he'd had at the time, and he'd got the tattoo on holiday. Now, Max was like, oh, Olivia's like revealing my secrets or whatever. But as he's already said that they were best friends before they went out, and he told her everything. Obviously, he didn't, because she didn't even know what that tattoo meant. It's a bit bizarre. Akon and Daniela really confused me with this one, because Olivia said, how often do you have sex? And she says every 2 weeks, and he says 2 to 3 times a day. And when they were talking about it and they were like trying to come to a compromise, it just didn't make any sense. Then she said, what's Akon's favourite memory of you? And she said something like, oh, I've never finished with a man before until I met him. And he says it was when they had sex on a stage in front of like a lot of people. And then Ellie made a comment like, oh, she says that he doesn't like how like he strips for people or whatever, but she's having sex on a stage. Aye, it's different because she's there at the time. What's she not getting? I mean, aye, okay, it is weird for some people that a couple would have sex on a stage, but I personally think it's weird that your boyfriend shags your best friend and then you still go out with him, but we're all different. Jacinta and Italo got both their questions right, but one of the questions is your current partner like the best sex you've ever had? She said yes and he said no, and people were just like not very happy with him. And Olivia says, oh, you would just lie, wouldn't you? But actually, I don't think you should just lie, because they're there to be honest. And his reason was, the first time I ever did it, it literally blew my mind, and as times went on, like it's not the same. And everybody thought he was digging a hole, but I thought, you know, he's just being honest. But then if it's not blowing his mind that much, then why does he keep going round and just going with all these different people instead of just sticking to his girlfriend? And then throughout the game, it kept going on to people making different comments, and a lot of them were Ellie. And Ellie said, oh, if my boyfriend says that I wasn't his best sexual partner, I'd be fuming. But it's fine, it's alright for your boyfriend to have sex with your best friend. People's priorities are really different, aren't they? Shay and Miles' questions weren't even that bad. It was like, who's the best kisser and what is his least favourite part of your body? And it was her arms. Dylan and Anthony only got one question that we've seen, but she says describe like your sex in one word, and Dylan says connected and Anthony says fast, and he says it's only fast because I can't be bothered. Poof. Well, that explains why he's not putting any effort in. Dan and Ellie were asked what would Dan rate Ellie's kissing. She said a 7 and he said a 4. Now that is a pretty shit score. And then he says, oh well, there's always room for improvement. He should know, he's got absolutely every single fucking thing in life to improve on. Then she asked, is sex with each other the best sex you've ever had? She said yes. I'm assuming that he's the only person she's ever been with. And he said no. Now she was already pissed off at this, but then he continued, oh, I've slept with a lot more older, more experienced women. He says, I've had a lot better sex with other women. I've even had a tongue up my ass. And everybody's literally sitting there like just shut up, Dan. So they got another question, and she said, what would Ellie rate him for oral sex? And she wrote a 3 and he wrote a 0. And she says, oh, he never does it. Now what he could have said was, I don't like it, I don't think I'm good at it, or she doesn't like it, whatever, full stop. But he says, I don't do it, I don't like it because it tastes like battery acid. And everybody was just like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? So Olivia told them that they're all going to be living in the villa together and Brozone's closed. Ellie was talking to one of the girls and she says, I'm totally pissed off, like I could just leave right now and not give a shit. She couldn't though, could she? Because she's been going out with him for years. She's been putting up with this shit constantly and she's still there, so she's not going to do that. So Dylan was saying that he was really uncomfortable with PDA and the guys were so supportive. We don't mind, hold his hand, give him a kiss, like do whatever. We're not bothered. Support, I love it. So Olivia's like, I have tried to speak to Ellie. She's not listening to me. I've spoke to Dan, I thought he was making progress, but he's still a dick. So Olivia has brought in Ellie's mum, and usually I would say, why are they getting the parents involved? Who cares about anybody else's opinion? But in this case, Ellie obviously can't turn to her friends because they're too busy shagging her boyfriend. And she says that she's close to her mum, but she must not be that close to tell her what he's been getting up to. So hopefully the mum just tells him to get to fuck. But let me know what you thought of this episode and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye!